I said on that the match of the week between Raw, NXT, and Dynamite was Ciampa and Ziggler, right? That was the best match of the three programs. The best interview, the best segment was on AEW and came up next. Imagine that. And imagine this, it involved MJF and CM Punk, but mostly MJF. And I've seen a lot of people are talking about this on Twitter and they're raving about it, et cetera, et cetera. But this, it's an example of, Miz wouldn't have done this because Miz couldn't do this because it would have required him being somewhat real. And Miz just is the celebrity type. But MJF now finally, he didn't even break character. He didn't get away from his gimmick. It actually more explained his gimmick of why he's an insufferable prick. Because he was mentally mistreated in his past or whatever. And he's got a specific grudge against Punk because of not anything Punk really did to him, but because of what he believes Punk did. And the whole thing, he ended up, and I think I know, obviously, I don't know for sure, but I think I know where this is going, and it's even better. That some people said, well, MJF, he switched babyface, and he showed us he wasn't really that mean of a guy. Right then and there he may have, but I don't know if it's going to happen over the long term. But he told the story about the picture of him meeting CM Punk when he was 11. He had ADD and school was hell, but he was good at football. He was one of the only two Jewish kids to, go out for the football team. Are there Jews in the house? Were you in the house, Brian?
I was not in the house, but I was watching live, obviously.
Well, there you go. He started as middle linebacker, and his teammates threw quarters at him as hard as he could because he was Jewish. Is that a thing that people do?
I can't speak specifically to that, but I will say, despite people recognizing that there are a lot of Jewish people on Long Island, we still do deal with anti-Semitism, and some of what he dealt with, according to this promo, this heel origin story, are very similar things to what a lot of us, despite growing up in either Jewish communities or communities that have a large Jewish population or just outright large Jewish communities, you still deal with this even on Long Island.
But I don't get the idea of throwing money at somebody that you don't like. That's like an Arena Mexico thing, right? Well, you had a great match. We're going to throw the money. I would have been there with the catcher's mitt catching the money going, fuck you guys, throw some more.
Well, usually bigots aren't smart.
Well, I know what he's doing, but nevertheless. The point is he had a tough time in school. He found something he was good at, football, but his teammates didn't accept him. He cried all day, but he'd get to meet his hero that night. And that meant everything to him. And he promised himself he was going to be the best wrestler in the world. And he wanted to be like CM Punk. And he found out it was just another Friday for CM Punk, but it meant a lot to him. And then in January 2014, Punk left him when he needed him most. It was your fault, you no good bastard. So anyway, MJF went to college, but he quit to become the best wrestler in the world. And he's not going to quit like Punk at Revolution because I'm better than you and you know it. But he laid this whole thing out, and you got to see it. And the emotion, and he was quivering, and he was kind of tearing up a little bit. And it's obviously, I don't know if, he made tons of money getting money thrown at him, but there was a lot of real in this, and he was drawing on, some of that and that emotion, and people started kind of getting with him a little bit as far as, just feeling sorry for him. And all of a sudden when he's done, here comes Punk, no music, just coming out with a concerned look on his face. And Tony Schiavone, he's trying to help, but did you hear him say, I've got 5 kids. ADD is no joke. Fuck, he's got 5 kids. Fucking sexual addiction may be no joke either, Tony, for heaven's sake. As Arn Anderson said, you got enough cum in you, Schiavone, to shampoo a buffalo. But anyway, Punk comes in the ring with no microphone, and just looking at MJF and says, "Is that true? Is that real?" And MJF walked off on him. And Punk's sitting there going, maybe, is this guy for real? It creates questions. It was fucking good. And now it's more intriguing. Now does Punk believe that maybe he had something to do with making this guy act this way toward him? Whatever. Was it me? And of course, I can see, I don't think I'm ruining anybody. No spoiler here. The best way for MJ, and of course, what I predict may not necessarily happen because I can just see it making the most sense, but MJF at some point when he beats Punk, which he probably will, then he revealed, yeah, you fucking idiot, you fell for that whole fucking line of shit. I was the one running the goddamn football locker room when I was in college. Fuck you, or whatever. But I like this, and it was different, and it wasn't the same shit we see over and over again, and MJF did a great job. What'd you think?
I thought it was one of the greatest promos I've ever seen on wrestling. It was one of the most unique promos I've ever seen on wrestling. You have a guy that the fans love booing, not in the Cody way, but in the right way, and he was able to get them to shut up and listen and start believing him and going with him. He did have tears. This fucking guy was able to make himself cry in the middle of this. And like you said, a lot of this was probably based on reality. I believe that just, based on how I grew up on Long Island. But this was an incredibly strong promo. This did a great job of laying out, like I said before, the heel origin story, but where exactly this comes from with MJF and Punk. And I'm going to say it again because I've been saying it for a while, but it's noticeable that for the last several months, the one segment that is almost always must-see on AEW TV has been anything with CM Punk or MJF and this feud in this program.
Yeah.
It's been months now. Not everything's what you would do and not everything's what I would do, but they're not messing up. They're telling a story.
The worst thing that we said one week, we said it started going a little long. It was good, but it was a little long. That's the worst thing that we could say.
They're telling a story. They haven't rushed anything. They haven't done anything egregious or stupid. They haven't done anything to take away your ability to suspend disbelief. This, I would actually argue this may be the single greatest feud in the history of AEW. Just right now. Just based on the logic and the fact that it's connecting with fans. The dog collar match is going to be a big test, but I'm sad this feud's going to have to end at some point because the only thing that'll make it better is if each guy now goes to have another feud and those two segments become the good segments on the show. But this has been one of the greatest feuds in modern wrestling. This has easily, I think, been the best feud in AEW. Not feud amongst the executives, but actual feud on camera.
I think MJF has to win the dog collar, and I think they come up with a third match that if not Punk's specialty, I don't know whether guys even have specialty matches anymore, but something that Punk deserves to get based on what happens in the dog collar. And then Punk can get his fucking win, but MJF has already beat him twice, first two times in a row, and has been elevated in somewhat of a moral victory, you might say. So yes, Punk would win in the end, but it wouldn't be the Jericho one more match kid. It would be, okay, I put you over and I put you over again, and now I'll get it, but you're more established. I think that, that hopefully they're looking towards something like that.
And this whole feud has done nothing but establish MJF in ways that Jericho feud completely missed the mark. You want to talk about Punk here? Punk was great. Like you said, no microphone. Hit the ring. You look at his face. His face told the whole story. You could have watched that scene on mute. You would have known what was going on. You can't wait to see what's going to happen next. This has been the best. This has been the best thing they have there. And the only question I would have for you is, and someone's going to tell me I'm wrong, but I'm trying to think back in my head. I know he lost to Jericho, but that wasn't a pinfall. Do you give MJF his first ever pinfall loss in AEW to CM Punk?
I think he would, at the point that Punk has earned it, which if he puts him over one more time, he has. But see, the conventional wisdom or rule of thumb, or maybe even just feeling like it's fair would be, okay, if they're going to go 3 matches, well, MJF won the first one in Chicago, Punk wins the second, but MJF gets heat and then they have a third. I don't like that setup, because if Punk wins the second, especially in his own stipulation, then it kind of puts a period on it where, okay, MJF got the fluke, but now I've established I'm better. If MJF wins again in the stipulation that Punk came up with, whether fair means or foul, then it's like, wait a minute, shit. We didn't think it was going to go this way. Why should there be a third match? MJF's already beat him twice. That's what he's saying. But there would be extenuating circumstances to where Punk would deserve and receive a rematch, and then Punk could get his win back. I can see that as having a little bit more impact than, okay, I'll take first one, you take second one, and then we'll have the rubber match.
The other intriguing thing is, going under the assumption this feud eventually will have to come to an end, and it seems like they've been teasing the MJF Wardlow thing. They're either going to pull that now or they may wait a little longer. We're not even sure. But that's a possibility for MJF. What do you think they do with Punk next?
Hopefully anything Punk wants to do, because so far I would have bet that he's been picking most of this and he's done a good job. I hope we don't see MJF versus Wardlow in any kind of series of things. I think MJF needs to introduce another stooge beholden to him to fight Wardlow to get Wardlow over, because if they went straight from Wardlow turning babyface to Wardlow versus MJF, you're either going to beat Wardlow, that's too soon, or you're going to beat MJF, and that shouldn't be done except rarely. So there's going to be a little issue there with what the fuck goes on. With Punk, I mean, I can't predict, because they just, like with Adam Cole and Adam Page, just pick shit out of the blue, except with Punk having more control. That is interesting, because he's worked with a variety of guys. I don't know. Who would be good to be next?
I don't know.
Well, maybe we'll find out.